for a live question and answer. Basically here answering any of your real estate questions. My name is Jeb Smith. As many of you know, I'm a real estate broker here in Southern California. And I do these live broadcasts to help answer questions that you may have as a buyer, as a seller out there looking at property, maybe a first-time home buyer, maybe you're an escrow. Maybe you have finance questions, but that's the reason we're here. So do me a favor, if you have questions, put them in the comments so that I can address those. That's how this works, if you will. It makes it a lot easier if I have questions that I can answer. Otherwise, I'm just sitting here talking to a camera with no real information. So I'm going to give it a minute to get the broadcast on, to get some people on here streaming. I think we're at like 10 or so people now. So if you have questions, again, put them in the comments, and we'll definitely be addressing those. But while I have you guys here, let's just talk a minute about the market. What's going on in the housing market? I'm still having a lot of people ask questions about housing. Should they buy? Should they sell? And as you guys know, I do a lot of housing updates, at least probably one every 2 weeks, just keeping you up to date on the market. And depending on where you're located in the United States, I know I have viewers all over the place. Here in Southern California, our market remains really, really strong. I know you guys have heard me repeat this over and over again, but our inventory is very, very low. We're less than a 2-month supply of inventory locally. Buyer demand remains really, really high. Interest rates are really, really low. This is only going to get worse for the next couple of months. What do I mean by that? Well, you're likely going to have less inventory coming to the market because of the time of year. This is typically the time of year when things already slow down. And this year isn't going to be any different. This year is probably going to be worse because we're already going into it with less inventory. In addition to that, you have people that would potentially list their property maybe, but now with coronavirus, maybe having a second round and people being sick, you're going to have less people that want people in their homes. So that's going to play a factor on it as well. And then you just have the holidays. People don't want people walking through their houses during this time of the year. And so with that, you're going to have less inventory. I imagine buyer demand's probably going to stay high just because of where interest rates are. And that's going to push us into 2021. And who knows what happens at that point, right? I mean, we don't have a crystal ball, but inventory isn't going to change overnight, which is likely going to give us a very similar market as we push into the new year. Now, I have a couple of you guys starting to comment here. Do me a favor. Can you see the video, the audio? Is it good? I'm using a different broadcast software to put this out there. So it's, this was kind of a test run today, to be completely honest. This was last minute. Something I threw together, but just to make sure everything is good visually and on the audio, do me a favor and just let me know in the comments. And in the meantime, so Murad says, people say that a real estate market crashes every 10 years or so. Do you think it's always true? Has there always been market crashes before 2008? So real estate has always been cyclical. What does that mean? Well, it always goes up and then it levels off at some point and goes down. And then it goes back up. It's a lot like the stock market, right? It has cycles. Just like every year in the real estate market, there's a cycle. Whether or not you notice it, there's a winter spring cycle, there's a fall summer cycle. I mean, it transitions. So to answer your question, yes, there have been crashes previous to 2008, and real estate is cyclical. So at some point, real estate should pull back. Does that mean it has to crash? No, but history does repeat itself. So at some point in the future, you'll likely have a crash. Now, I'm not expecting our next cycle to be a crash per se, but I do think we will see a pullback. We need a pullback to some extent, just because we've been on this upward trajectory since 2011, 2012. And so with that said, at some point you're going to see a pullback. Now, if you pay attention to the Canadian market at all, they're experiencing a completely different type of market because they've been on this upward trajectory for, as long as we have, and they're moving up faster than we have. And yet there's still no reprieve, if you will. I mean, their market is going crazier than the U.S. Everybody's looking at the U.S. thinking there's got to be a market crash, while Canada is even worse, and it's moving up faster, a lot faster than the United States with regards to wages. So, their markets continue to thrive. So that's not to say that the U.S. can't do the same thing, and I expect that we're going to have a similar market to 2020 and 2021. But we can address that, as we get more questions here. But that's my 2 cents on that topic. I appreciate the feedback on the audio and the video. Video shows shadow on the lower half of my face. So, all right, I will try to correct that for the next one. Is it true that we are at the peak right now? When do you expect the cycle to go downward? So it's hard to say whether we're at a peak or not. I'm not in the business of telling people to buy at the bottom, sell at the top, or what have you. I mean, it's great if you can do that. Here's what I will say. We've been on an upward, trajectory for quite some time. We do need a pullback. Do I think we're at the peak? It's hard to say. I think we're probably pretty close to somewhat of a peak. But I think this market probably has another year or two in it potentially, just because of all the stimulus that's out there. I think it's going to take time for foreclosures, for the moratoriums to actually, for those properties to impact the market. If anybody went through the debacle in 2008, I sold a lot of foreclosures during that period of time. And I saw what it took to foreclose on property, and that was a different market completely. But at that time, people were staying in their property years in some cases. And I expect that same thing to happen in this market. You're going to have people that should be foreclosed upon that are going to fight it. It's going to take time. So it's going to take time for that whole thing to play out. And in the meantime, you're going to have some foreclosures trickle to the market. And if buyer demand stays where it is with interest rates being low, chances are those properties are going to sell pretty quickly. So it's hard to say whether we're at a peak or not. I think we're getting close to a peak. But just because you reach a top in the market doesn't mean a crash is inevitable. That's the thing, is I make these comments on YouTube all the time, and I get a lot of people coming back to me telling me I'm crazy, that we've reached a new high, so the market has to crash. No, you reach a new high, and yeah, the market may pull back. That is normal. That's normal activity for a market. And so if the market pulls back 5 or 10%, that's okay. That's normal. Just, if you're buying a property now or considering buying, make sure you're comfortable with the payment. Make sure you're not completely stretching yourself, and, tell yourself that you're going to be in that property for the next 5, 7, 10 years. And in that case, you're going to be fine. I mean, your grandparents didn't buy $1 million properties. In most cases, they bought properties that were, $50,000, $60,000 at some point. And now those properties are worth $1 million, because over time, real estate appreciates. There's this saying that says, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. This goes right along with that. So, right. By the way, you are popping in on Kyle's live last night. All right. So I'm reading some of the comments here. I'm a first-time home buyer who finally got a down payment to buy $600,000 house. Should I buy or wait a few years, try to save more? Depends. It depends on what your goals are. Each person's a little bit different. I would look at what you're paying to rent versus what it costs to buy a property. In a lot of markets right now, because of where rents are, you can buy a property and your rent is pretty comparable to what your mortgage payment would be. At the same time, you're getting tax write-offs, you're getting appreciation on the property, potential appreciation on the property long term. The latest statistic came out and said homeowners have a greater 44 times greater net worth than that of renters. And it's because of owning property. That's a large percentage of it. I mean, clearly I'm pro owning property. I'm in the real estate business. But you've got to do what's right for you. It's not always a great time to buy real estate. But I think where interest rates are right now, I think the payments are very enticing, especially when you're looking at something to rent. I mean, I've I've considered, years ago, potentially selling my property, looking for something else and waiting it out and what have you. And then when you look at the market to see what is available to rent for what you pay, it's crazy. I mean, you're better off owning a property at that point. So it's hard to say. I would say follow your gut. Look at the statistic depending on what market you're in. Some markets are going to fare better than others during a downturn. I'm in Orange County, California. It's always going to be a desirable place to live. Now, I realize a lot of people are leaving the state of California for other reasons, but the weather is what draws people here, and that's always going to be the case. So you're always going to have people, wanting to move here, whereas some places in the Midwest, you might not have that, right? So those markets might get impacted more than, a major metropolitan area. But at the moment, you have a lot of people migrating out of these major metropolitan areas to get to more rural areas because, for one, they can afford more property, they get more bang for their buck. They no longer have to commute to their jobs. They can work virtually. So you've got this big shift in real estate as a whole, and that's why you're seeing a lot of these markets, Utah, Colorado, Idaho. All of these markets are going absolutely crazy because people are leaving the major metropolitan areas like California, and migrating to more affordable areas, which is now driving up the prices in those areas. So a lot of those places hate Californians because there's a lot of Californians leaving California to go there because it is more affordable. So, keep that in mind when you're looking at real estate as well. Other areas are appreciating as fast as California, and sometimes faster. I think Boise at the moment is kind of top of the leaderboard. All right. All right, guys, what kind of questions do we have? Anything out there, throw it at me. Murad's got a lot of stuff here, but I think we've addressed it, most of what he's asking rather. Yeah, Tic Tac just came on and said that, people are leaving the city of Chicago for Midwest states. We're seeing it all over the place, especially here in Southern California. Before COVID, I would have on average 3 to 4 clients move out of state every single year. It was normal because cost of living, right? I mean, it was one of those things that people could just afford more out of state, and they were sick of California for various reasons. COVID came and people got to sit at home and reflect for 2 to 3 months about a lot of things that were going on in California. And at the same time, they were allowed to then work from home. That changed a lot of people's mindsets on taking that leap and now going and considering markets that they would have never considered previously, because previously they either had to make that long commute to work, or they weren't in a position to do office meetings and what have you virtually. And now people can take that large down payment that they have in California that buys them next to nothing, move out of state like Arizona, and buy a nice property, still have the same job. The cost of living is a lot less, but they're still making the same salary. So it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of people doing that migration. All right, Sonia says, thanks for answering my question this morning. She's a new subscriber. I appreciate it, Sonia. Do I know who Ken McElroy is? Very confident there will be a huge real estate crash, so I'm not sure what to do. Buy or wait. Yes, I'm familiar with Ken McElroy. I watch his videos. I get people often asking me why I can't see the other side of the coin, why I'm always sticking to my gut on my opinion of the real estate market. It's because I believe in what I'm saying, right? I don't feel like I'm on the fence here thinking that the market could go either way, at least at the moment. Now, I'm not naive, as I've mentioned in many videos before, to think that this is going to happen forever, that the market's going to continue to go up, that there's never going to be a down. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying right now, I don't expect there to be a market crash. Now, could that change in 3 months? Of course it could. But what I'm looking at right now is the data. I'm looking at, how much inventory is, how much demand there is, and that's what dictates a real estate market. Now, I realize Ken is bringing in the factors of all the mortgage forbearances and a lot of other things into the equation. But here's my take on it. If you read the fine print in some of these reports, take the mortgage forbearance data, for example. I think last month they put out a report that said something like, highest delinquency rate ever, right? It was like 21% of mortgages are delinquent. Something crazy like that. I don't remember. Don't quote. Don't make me stick to the number on that. But it was some crazy number percentage of mortgages are delinquent. But if you go in and you read the fine print at the bottom of the article, it states in that article that they're including all of the people that are currently in forbearance. So if you're in forbearance, you don't have to make your mortgage payments. That's part of the agreement. So they're lumping all of these people who have taken forbearance into the delinquency number. That's not an accurate number at that point, because it's not an accurate number until those people have ended their forbearance. They've come to the end of it. They've whatever their reinstatement plan is, and at that point, when they have to start making their mortgage payments again, if then they don't make payments, then you count them as delinquent. That should be what the statistic is. It shouldn't be that you lump all of these people that are on forbearance with people that aren't paying their mortgage and then come up with your numbers. It's part of attention grabbing headlines to make you click on it. And the problem is it gets a lot of people worried. So people like Ken McElroy are using that as part of their, their take on why the market's going to crash. Ken doesn't sell real estate. I'm dealing with real estate every single day. I'm having buyers get outbid on property every single day. I'm having to write offers for buyers over and over and over again. Buyers that are frustrated because they've offered more than the asking price on every single scenario. They have a large percentage to put down. They have great credit scores, great employment, and they still can't get an offer accepted. But those people want to buy property. So if you go back, again, I'm not an economist, as many of you know, and you look at, basic Econ 101, supply and demand is one of the first things they teach in there. When you have, very little of something and you have a lot of people that want it, it's going to drive the price up. That's what we're seeing right now. Now, that can't last forever, but one of two things needs to happen. You either need rates to go up, which would slow the demand, and inventory would increase at that point once the demand slows. But we've already been told by the Fed that they're going to keep interest rates low. While it's the Fed funds rate, I understand it's not interest rates. They're going to keep the Fed funds rate low through 2023. That's 3 years out. Typically, interest rates and the Fed funds rate follow each other, so interest rates are going to stay low. So buying power for borrowers is still going to be there. So what's going to happen to supply? It's going to continue to get bought, purchased as it comes to the market. The only way that changes if you have some huge influx of property come to the market all at once in every single one of these areas that has this problem across the United States. That's not going to happen. As we've discussed, it takes time for properties to foreclose. Right now, the moratorium that was issued through the end of the year expires at the end of the year. So as of January 1st, you can start the foreclosure proceedings again. You can start the eviction proceedings again as of right now. That's the way that it's the federal one is going to play out. It's going to take time for that to play out. I mean, earliest you start to see some of those foreclosures is probably going to be mid next year. So could a crash be 2022, 2023? Potentially, but I can't see that far in the future. I'm telling you what's happening right now with the data that I have. So that's my take on that, man. Thanks, Kyle, for saying the video's sharp, man. I'm taking pointers from you. So if the market crash happens, how much can it go down? 20, 30, 50%. You're in California, so who knows, right? I mean, again, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen to the market. I think we need a 15, 20% pullback. That would be healthy for our market. A lot of people wouldn't like that, but that would be a good thing for some period of time to allow, things to ease a little bit so that the market can appreciate. You have a lot of stimulus, as you know, being pumped into the economy at the moment. Part of that is, well, all of that is because of, basically the federal lockdown weren't allowing people to work, what have you. So we came into COVID with already low inventory. COVID didn't create low inventory. They just added to it. And so you've got less supply on the market right now. I don't know. I think if you see a pullback, it's not as big as most people think, right? I mean, what is a crash? I mean, let's define what a crash is. Is a crash 50%? Is a crash 10%? I mean, to me, 10% is healthy. So if the market pulls back 10%, everybody's going to look at Jeb and go, dude, I told you the market was going to crash. That's not a crash. That's a normal pullback. A crash is something major that affects, the entire market all at one time. Some big, fall at once. I don't see that happening. So let's see here. Roberto says, U.S. Bank told me yesterday that I need to pay escrow accrued during my forbearance or payment goes up if I choose the deferment option. So, for those of you, I don't know how many people on here are going through forbearance or familiar with forbearance, so I don't want to go into a lot of detail on it, just because I don't know if the majority of you understand it and or even care about it. But, when you go through mortgage forbearance, here's the problem. Some lenders, some servicers are paying your escrows. So they're paying your taxes and your insurance while you're in forbearance. Some lenders are not. And so I get a lot of people asking me, well, how does that work? It's going to depend on your lender. Unfortunately, there's not a strict guideline on this, at least that I'm aware of. So, if you haven't paid your escrows, you are going to have to pay them at some point, right? Your tax and insurance are going to need to be paid. And so if you're unable to pay them up front, your lender's likely going to start adding those to your payment because, you need your taxes and insurance paid, because if you don't, you could get foreclosed upon by the county for not paying your taxes, and you have to have insurance on your property. So Ken says, thanks for the referral. You're welcome, Ken. Hope it's working out. Jennifer's saying she's ready to purchase in the spring. Obstacles: having no credit score with a 10 to 15% down payment on a $100,000 home and zero DTI. Should I be able to get a loan? In theory, yes, absolutely. You should be able to. The caveat is you're probably going to have a hard time with no credit score. Lenders want to see, back in the day, when I was lending, when I was doing loans, that was some time ago, lenders wanted to see 2 to 3 trade lines at least at that time. And, so that could be anything: credit card, car payment, anything like that. Now, if you have 0 trade lines, if you have 0 debt, there are ways to create trade lines, cell phone bills, and other bills that you can have added to the credit bureau sometimes in order to generate a score. But most lenders are going to want to see a score of some kind. Now, I encourage people. I know people don't want to take on debt in some cases. They don't want credit cards because they'll use them. But an easy way to generate a credit score is to get a couple credit cards open, keep the balances small, pay them off every month for some period of time, generate a score, get your loan done, and then, close the accounts if you need to. But, you need some history out there in most cases in order for a lender to lend you money. So it's going to be something that unfortunately you're going to have to likely do. Now, could there be a lender out there that will do that? Yeah, I mean, there might be. Unfortunately, I'm not up to date enough on that side of things to tell you who can do it or who can't do it, for that matter. But I would encourage you to, because credit is important. I know there's people out there like Dave Ramsey and that sort of thing telling you basically, not to have credit to some extent, but you need it in cases like this to get car loans, to get housing loans and what have you. It doesn't mean you have to use the credit. It just means you need it available so that you can actually generate a score. Okay, so Kyle from Win the House You Love. If you don't follow his channel, I encourage you to do so. Dude is really, really good on breaking down FHA, breaking down numbers. He's a lender. He's in Ohio. So, I encourage you to check out his channel. Rarely do I ever, give props out on something like this, but I would encourage you guys to check him out. And, but he commented here and said that, he said, you can do a manual underwrite. It's a pain in the butt, higher rate, but it's possible. So there's the answer to your question, Jennifer. And actually, she has seen his video, so she's aware of that as well. So that's awesome. Ken saying, Jennifer, a great way to get a line of credit is to get a secure credit card. So that's another thing too. Secure credit card, you put the money up front on the credit card, so you're only spending money that's yours and not actual credit, and you can generate a credit score that way as well. Let's say your monthly income after taxes is $8,000. What's the maximum amount of house payment you should aim for, assuming credit card debt free? So, that's not something I can answer or even will answer, unfortunately, Murad. Lenders are going to qualify you on your gross, not your net. So whatever your gross is, not the $8,000 is what they're going to qualify you on. And so, lenders, depending on what type of loan you're doing, are going to have different debt to income ratios. In most cases, conventional loans are going to want to stay somewhere around 43 to 45% or so. What does that mean? That means, take your gross monthly income. Let's just say it's $10,000 a month for our conversation here. So, what's 45% of 10,000? That's $4,500 a month. The lender wouldn't allow you to really spend more than $4,500 per month towards your mortgage payment. That includes taxes, that includes insurance, it includes PMI if you have PMI. It also includes any other liabilities that you might have, student loans, credit cards, car payments, that sort of thing. So there are ways to work backwards to get to that. In fact, I'm gonna tell you again, Win the House You Love YouTube channel, Kyle has a great spreadsheet. I gave him props on it last week, where you can actually compute your DTI. Super cool spreadsheet, and you can kind of figure out backwards, kind of like on the back of a napkin type thing, how much you can afford to purchase, which is good stuff. So Churchill Mortgage might be a good option for a zero credit score, is coming in from Kyle over at Win the House You Love, and also saying talk to mortgage brokers. So I would always encourage you to do that as well. Always talk to a broker outside. Even if you go to a bank, talk to a broker just to get a couple of different options, because not everything fits in a box. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So, when you're qualifying, you're trying to get qualified, make sure you're looking at your options out there. I get a question asking, am I helping buyers manage expectations with how competitive the market is? I'm seeing buyers put in 7+ offers. It's a really, really good question, and unfortunately, there's not really a good answer to it. I'm talking to most buyers and telling them exactly what the market is. I'm fortunate in that the majority of my business, 95% of it, is relational. It comes from friends, family, past clients. So a lot of my clients coming in already know who I am, have a reputation, so to speak, with them, which is really good. So I don't have to sell myself on who I am. I can just come in and be real. And I'm telling a lot of these clients exactly what's happening up front. This is the type of market we're in. It's not for everyone. This is a market that, if you're FHA, it's going to be tough in a lot of cases, at least in Southern California. Even if you have a large down payment, in some cases, it's going to be tough. I mean, I've put in, 3 offers in the last 7-10 days. All were multiple offers. These were all over $1 million. All were multiple offer situations, and 2 of the 3 we didn't get. So it's one of those things, and buyers are always super deflated when they don't get a property. So it's a tough conversation to have. But I've always told buyers, whether or not you agree with this, you can't fall in love with the property, right? You can't fall in love with the property until it closes, because for one, if you fall in love with the property before we ever, get into escrow, you hinder my ability to negotiate, right? Because if you're in love with it, you're willing to do whatever it is to get that property, whatever price it is, whatever it needs to be done, you're willing to do that. And in some cases, that's what it takes. But in other cases, there's ways to negotiate and make things happen. So, it's all about setting proper expectations up front, just telling people, hey, this is the market we're in. It's going to be tough. If you see something that you like, we've got to move on it quickly, not because I want you to move quickly. But if you want to be in a position where you're even considered in the case, in the offer process, you've got to move quickly. And we talk about escalation clauses, doing things to help our offer stand out. We've talked about home buyer letters. I call them love letters. That we're writing to sell. We're doing every single thing we can to make our offer as solid as possible. We're having the lender call the agent on the other end. And in addition to that, we're trying to, hopefully I might know the agent on the other end and can try to have conversations to find out what the seller wants, what their motivations are, and play into those. But honestly, it's tough. It can be tough. I mean, there's cash buyers not getting property in some cases that are offering above the asking price. So not a solid answer there. How would I approach selling an occupied rental home? Any difference from owner occupied? Yes. If you're selling a rental property, it can be a different scenario because your tenants have to cooperate, right? And so you need an agent that can deal with tenants, that knows the process of working with tenants. I mean, you need somebody that it takes some experience to deal with that sort of situation. In fact, it's a lot different than selling an owner-occupied property, because in an owner-occupied property, you're dealing with the people that want to sell. That you're dealing with their motivations, their reasons. You can, whenever there's issues or what have you, you know what to talk to them about because they're your clients. And in the cases of rental property, not only do you have your clients to deal with, you have people that don't own the property, may not want to leave, don't understand why you're selling it, and maybe not be able to find another property. So you're dealing with the emotions of all of that. So it's different process, but there's a lot of hand holding there, and it's honestly a lot of give and take. You just gotta work with both sides to come to a common goal. What credit score can be used to calculate how much you pay for PMI? Is credit score used to calculate how much you pay for PMI? Yes, I believe so. I honestly don't know 100% on that. I should know that. I don't know that. I think credit score and down payment are two factors in the PMI calculation. I'm sure somebody's going to come in here and tell me 100% here in a minute, but that is, my take on that. So you're welcome, Ed. Cisco, I'm all cash and don't even get countered. So you got somebody here making cash offers and not even getting countered in some cases. It's tough. I mean, I had clients that won out. We have a loan. In fact, I think they're 10 or 12% down, and we won against a cash offer. In fact, two cash offers. And we ended up offering more than the cash offer was willing to go. My clients really wanted the property. They were willing to pay that. So they got it. So it's all about, unfortunately, who's willing to pay the most in this market. All right. I can't teach the beard thing. In fact, it's going to get ugly here when November comes and the mustache comes out. So I'm warning you guys now. It's not good. It's never good. Are sellers paying closing costs in LA's market right now, or are buyers offering to pay for them to stand out? Sellers aren't paying buyers closing costs in most cases. I haven't had a buyer get their closing costs paid by a seller in some time. It typically is very difficult to do in a seller's market unless, it's a unique property and it's not getting a lot of activity. In that case, you might be able to build something in like that. But sellers are paying the typical seller's closing cost, their portion of escrow, their portion of title, the transfer fees, all that stuff. At least in my offers they have. I mean, we're still writing offers like we've always written them. We're not changing anything at this time. So I hope that answers your question. Hey, Steve-O. Steve-O's in here from Bali. I don't even know what time it is there right now. All right. So I'm in a bidding war and currently a runner-up. We're hoping the first bidder falls through. If they fall through, how many days do I have to accept the offer if they choose their runner-up bidder? In this market, if you're the backup, I would tell you to make that decision quickly. typically, depending on how it's structured, you probably have 3 days, depending on what state you're in the contract and all that stuff. But in this market, if you're the backup and you want that property, I would tell you to make a decision very, very quickly because things are moving. You don't want to risk losing that property if that's the one. So make sure you're doing that. And you're in Sacramento, so that market is hot at the moment, as you know, very, very hot. One of the hottest in California. So what is the magic sauce for getting an offer accepted, or is it every situation different? Every situation is going to be a little bit different. I always encourage buyers to do the same things on every property. What does that mean? In this market, we're making the offers as clean as possible. So we're shortening the contingency periods as short as we can do them. We're not waiving contingency periods. That's crazy. We are shortening contingency periods in most cases. We might waive an appraisal contingency depending on the house and what we think it'll appraise for and that sort of thing. But we're shortening termite, that sort of thing. Not all places, all states have termites, but here in California, that's one thing that we deal with. And so a lot of those things we are negotiating in the repair request. We're not negotiating them in the original contract because we want to get into escrow and then we can negotiate, right? And it's not that we're trying to hide something. We're just trying to make the offer as clean as possible up front. Home warranty, that sort of thing. In a lot of cases, I'm paying the home warranty for the buyers just to not have that expense show on the purchase agreement. That way the buyers don't have to deal with it either. And, make that offer as clean as possible. In addition to that, we are doing, 2 to 3% on escrow deposits. So we're making the deposits strong. Again, that money's refundable. It's never at risk until contingencies are released. So, that's not something we're really concerned with. And that money just comes out of the down payment at the end anyway. So we're doing strong, escrow deposits. We are writing buyer letters to the seller. In some cases, we're doing videos of the family. Really depends on what the buyers are comfortable with, but we're trying to get emotion out of the seller, right? In a lot of cases, people have raised families in their homes. They've raised kids, grandchildren, whatever it is. So we're trying to tie into the emotional side of the seller, especially if we're a family. We're trying to do whatever we can to get emotion out to help our offer stand out. So, you got to leverage as much as you can, and try to separate yourself from all the other people out there, because there's a lot of people that aren't doing that. A lot of agents write really sloppy offers. I try to write thorough offers. I try to have everything in a package. The buyer's funds to close, proof of that. The pre-approval letter. Automated underwriting findings, so DU findings showing that it's approved, eligible copies of credit scores. I'm literally giving everything so that the seller can look at it and go, these people are really, really qualified. Having my lender talk to the listing agent as well. So every single thing we can do in order to help us stand out. So I know that's a lot. All right, did we lose video here, guys? All right, that is not good. Hold on 1 second here. Sorry. Amateur hour. All right, guys, sorry about that. Here we go. We back? Test, test. All right. So I'm going to have to finish this up anyway today, guys. I'll go longer on the next one. Kids have soccer. Got to pick them up from soccer. That's what happens when you don't do backup power and you're filming from a DSLR or, a camera without backup. The battery dies and you lose the visual. So sorry about that, guys. I appreciate you guys watching. If you're new to my channel, new to me, you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I encourage you to reach out to me if you have questions. If you need a good lender, you need a good real estate agent, regardless of where you are, I'm happy to take that time and put you in touch with somebody that can help you. But I always appreciate your support. I appreciate you guys always commenting and giving me positive feedback. So until next time, we'll see you soon. All right, guys. Later.